The arrest of Alan Jones this week is a sad state of affairs. This is regardless of whether he's guilty or innocent. I find it sad for the alleged victims, of course. Sad that a bloke that I admired in the media is facing such serious allegations in his old age. But it's also sad because of what these high-profile sex assault cases seem to bring out in some Aussies. I got a taste of that this week when, after Alan's arrest and before any charges were announced on Monday morning, I tweeted out that I didn't know Alan very well, but that I'd met him maybe half a dozen times in my media career, and he always was a kind gentleman. That caused some lovely people to call me a paedophile apologist. And worse, if there is any worse. I said that despite not knowing Alan well and having only met him a few times, that I admired him professionally. He is one of the greatest broadcasters and commentators this country's ever produced. And he has a mad work ethic, which I also admire. I mean, who gets up at 2 o'clock in the morning for more than 30 years to do a radio show, unless you actually do give a damn about the country? Now, sure, Alan was one of the very few lucky ones who made a lot of money out of the media game, but I still believe that he acted mainly out of a genuine conviction to his work and his values. I also like his politics, obviously, because we're on the same side of politics. I don't agree with everything he says. I didn't like him at all when I was a younger, dumb lefty. But agreeing with everything that a talk show commentator says would be, well, stupid. And that is not the idea of this game. This game's about making people think and consider different points of view from different perspectives, and Alan certainly did that. He also gave a lot of his time to help a lot of people. But again, I don't know him well. This show was on his network, ADH, last year, but we produce in Brisbane and ADH is in Sydney, so we didn't actually work together. If Alan is guilty of sexual assault against minors, then he must cop the punishment for that. There are 9 alleged victims and 26 charges in total, spanning alleged incidents between 2001 and 2019. 11 counts are for aggravated indecent assault, aggravated by the fact that he was accused as a person in a position of authority over the alleged victims. That's the aggravating factor, they say in law. So Jones will front Sydney's Downing Centre local court on December 18. This was an investigation that was started by the media. And it does concern me that it was started by the left-leaning media, by the Sydney Morning Herald and The Age, the newspapers that are owned by Nine Media, who also own Channel 9, and now the radio station 2GB, where Jones used to work. The major competitors of Sky News and Murdoch Media, where Jones finished his career. A police special strike force was established after the Nine newspapers' investigation. It might have been better for the public's faith in our criminal justice system if the investigation was started by the police first and the media second. But anyway, it is what it is, and it's now up to the courts to do their thing, which will take ages, no doubt, and drive us all mad for the next year or two. What I want to talk about is the reaction to my little tweet, because while most responses were very sensible and very measured, it does seem that we have in our midst a sad group of pitchfork-wielding yobbos, people who react emotionally, who love to attack and condemn, especially people who are more successful than them, and who take delight in assuming guilt before giving a person a fair hearing, and being smart-ass know-it-alls generally, when they actually know nothing. We talk a lot on this show about the presumption of innocence and how we're slowly losing that principle in this country. How powerful people on the left use and abuse the criminal justice system and the judicial system for their own political gain. And we've had many high-profile cases of this in the past decade. People who have been wrongly jailed, people who have had their careers destroyed on nothing more than unproven PR campaigns designed to be executed precisely to destroy reputations. Even the highest lawmaker in the land, the Attorney General of Australia, was taken down a couple of years back. Christian Porter, the Attorney General in ScoMo's government. He was forced to resign and disappear into oblivion, career ruined, reputation in tatters, because of allegations that he sexually assaulted a 17-year-old girl when he was 17. This woman committed suicide later in life after decades of mental illness. And despite the fact that her mental illness included psychoses, that's hallucinations and delusions, and an inability to determine truth from fantasy, and even though the police said there was nowhere near enough evidence to lay any charges or even do an investigation, and her own family said she probably was making a lot of stuff up, these 30-year-old claims about something that happened in the man's childhood, well, that was enough in the hysterical modern Australia in which a small handful of lovies at the ABC decide what's truth and what's fiction to ruin this man's career and reputation. It's the oldest trick in the book, right? It's the allegations that stick. It doesn't matter that Donald Trump's pick for Attorney General of the United States has had to withdraw and had his reputation destroyed. It doesn't matter that he wasn't convicted of anything, that there were no criminal charges laid. Just the accusation is enough. He just becomes accused, possible maybe sex offender, and that's it. You're done. Your career's finished. So you only have to level the accusation at your political opponents. That's all it takes. And if they can get the Attorney General of Australia, wow, what a powerful message from political opponents that is. We can even get the highest lawmaker in the land with our witch hunts if we want to. Nobody is beyond our reach. Be careful. Now, I'm not going to revisit the Cardinal Pell case, except to say that he physically could not have done what he was accused of doing. It was actually physically impossible. Yet he was prosecuted after a literal witch hunt by Victoria Police. They put ads in the paper looking for accusers. That's a witch hunt. He was sent to jail. He appealed. Then he had his conviction upheld by 2 out of 3 judges on the Victorian Supreme Court, despite the third judge raising really serious doubts about the whole case. Then they had the whole thing turfed out by 7-0, a unanimous federal High Court ruling. And within that High Court ruling, the High Court judges strongly rebuked the Victorian Supreme Court judges. Another crack in the public confidence in the political objectivity of our courts. The conviction was overturned, but not until after Pell had suffered and spent 400+ days in prison. Now, I've never been a fan of George Pell. I never met him, but from his public persona, I thought he came off as a very arrogant man. And the way he failed to deal properly with sex-offending priests within the church decades ago was a very serious failure of leadership and management. But he then did a lot of good later, such as trying to clean up the financial corruption in the Vatican, for example, and like setting up the first proactive church compensation program for sex assault victims in the world, here in Australia. And the Catholic Church, remember, is not the only institution in the world that's been infiltrated by creepy pedos and sex offenders, but it was one of the few to actually deal with the problem as well as it has in recent years, given a pretty bad start and absolutely woeful management of the problem early on. Then we had the sex scandal of the last federal election. There seems to be one before every federal election. Funny that, eh? The Lerman-Higgins case, the tentacles of which are still echoing around our country and our legal system. Serious claims of inappropriate behaviour in the ACT judicial and police system swirled around that case, further eroding public trust in our legal system. And so now we have a sceptical public wary of lawfare, politics, PR, media games and campaigning being behind every single charge that's ever laid against a high-profile public figure, which is understandable. But this is not good for the victims, and not good for the accused, and not good for the course of justice in our country, and definitely not good for the faith in our legal system overall. But sadly, that's where we're at. So many cases, so badly handled, that we seem to have lost faith. Well, some of us have. Others still, despite all the false accusations and convictions of the past, they still think it's okay just to assume people are guilty the very second that they're charged, or even based on rumour alone. I mean, why? Well, because the charges are awful, right? We rightly hate pedos. They are the scum of the earth. But allegations are just allegations, and charges only mean that the police and prosecutors think that a prima facie, a surface case, exists. And calling someone a pedo before you absolutely know they're guilty of that horrible thing is in itself a very immoral and sinful and wrong thing to do. So back to my tweet on Monday about Alan Jones. All I said was that it was a sad state of affairs, that I found it sad that someone I admired professionally, who I thought had done so much good for Australia, was in this position. I made absolutely no comment at all, none, about Alan's possible innocence or guilt. That is for the courts to decide, and I don't know. Nobody does. But despite that, out came the revolting comments. So many people who think, oh, they do know everything. Now, there were many good, sensible comments, I must say. Not all our fellow Aussies are incapable of nuanced thought. But there were way too many comments from people who just know that he's guilty, and that anyone even slightly defending him, which I actually wasn't even doing, is some sort of pedo defender. One woman said, everyone in the media has known for years that he's a predator. You can't be much of a journalist. Okay, so let's just separate what we know from what we don't, shall we? What everyone in the media knew was that Alan was gay. Well, we all assumed it. Fair enough. Last time I checked, that was not still a crime in Australia. It was also widely joked about in the media that Alan liked to surround himself with younger men, in much the same way as a straight man of his era might have surrounded himself with attractive female assistants. A little outdated, sure, perhaps not the best business practice to judge talent on their looks rather than their skills, but hey, still not a crime if you're not acting inappropriately. But it was never widely known in media circles, as a few lovely tweeters have posted on X, that this man was going around sexually assaulting people, and it was especially not known that any underage people might have been involved. That is a totally different level of accusation and a heck of a leap to make about someone. And you better have damn good evidence and proof for that, and prove it in a court of law. But that's not the point of this editorial. The innocence or guilt of this old bloke is a matter for the courts. What is a matter for us is how we conduct ourselves as this plays out. How many lewd jokes we entertain. How quick we are to rush to judgment when we really know absolutely nothing. We simply do not know what we think we know. And no, smoke does not mean there's always fire. Sometimes there's just a lot of smoke. There's a saying in the dark arts of bad public relations that one false allegation doesn't convict a person, but 3 or 4 false allegations, oh, that's as good as guilty. Just pile up the accusations, let the rumours roll, play on what people already know about a person. Oh, she's gay, she likes younger women. You know, not too big a leap to suggest that she might have been spending a little too long in the girls' locker room at that school she used to work at, right? Very easy way to take out a political opponent. Got an election coming up, she's not on our side, let's take her out. And that's why we have to be very, very careful. That's why we have courts of law and proper judicial process and rules of evidence and a tiny weeny little thing called the presumption of innocence. But the creeps are everywhere. Point this out publicly as I do and you'll get called a rape apologist. Just for the record, if we could trust our criminal justice system to actually get stuff right, which we can't, I'd be all for stringing up rapists and pedos, thank you very much. But anyway, calling someone a rape apologist or a pedo defender is truly vile. It's two of the most obscene slurs you could ever level against a person. It's common for people to blame social media for all this. Oh, we got to regulate social media? No, we don't. It's not social media. It's just the channel or the platform. The hate, the stupid behaviour, the dumbness, that comes from these horrible people in our midst. The stupidity comes from them. The ignorance, the lack of careful thought, the bad character. It comes from the people, not the channel or media platform that they happen to be using. Our culture is sick. Our educators, journalists, bureaucrats and politicians need to do better. And I think we need to rediscover some kind of maybe religion or philosophy at least to live by. Someone who does know Alan Jones quite well and whose take on all this was a very good one, I thought, was Sky News host Peter Credlin. She also raised some very pertinent points about the weird way that the arrest played out on Monday morning. Here's a short bit of her editorial from Monday night.
These allegations will now be tested in court, where evidence will be put forward and that evidence judged. All of it in a very public way. As it should be, because we believe in the rule of law in this country and we expect it to be applied openly, transparently and fairly. The third point I want to make is that I've known Alan, I've known him well for nearly 2 decades. I've seen him in many different contexts and the behaviour alleged is entirely out of character with the man I've known. The final point to make is that as a lawyer, I want to remind all of us in the media that it's a fundamental rule of justice that someone in this country is innocent until proven guilty. I note that Alan Jones wasn't given the option of presenting himself to the police station, and plainly the media were briefed in advance of what was to happen. Something that doesn't sit well with any of us who expect justice to be impartial and blind.
Indeed. It is very concerning that certain media were tipped off about the raid on Alan's apartment Monday morning, and that such a high-profile public figure wasn't given the chance to simply make his own way to the police station for the charges to be laid. He's so well known that it's not like he could sneak out of the country unnoticed. All this PR and theatrics by the New South Wales Police, it's not doing much to repair the public's faith in the objectivity of our criminal justice system. Here at The Other Side, we do not get more than $1 billion of taxpayer money like the ABC does to waste on fun stuff that we and our friends like while ignoring the public that we're supposed to serve. We have to rely on your support of this show. But I also hate asking for charity. So we've done a deal with what I think is the best VPN service in the world so that you can support this show and get excellent value for yourself in return. Private Internet Access VPN is a virtual private network. You download their app onto your phone, your TV, your computer, whatever you use, and it'll route all your data through a different server location so that you can't be tracked by the prying eyes of big government and big corporations. It keeps you and your family truly safe, and it will not massively slow down your internet speeds or make it harder to use your devices like some VPNs do. Private Internet Access, PIA VPN, is quick and easy to install, and once you've downloaded it, that's pretty much it. You can sign up using our special Other Side code for less than $3 a month. Unbelievable. That is a whopping 83% off the normal price, and you'll get the first 4 months free, and you will be helping our show a lot. So get onto it, piavpn.com/otherside to get the special deal. And get this, if you've got a Netflix account, by signing on through a server in another country to Netflix, like the US, for example, you'll get access to that country's library of Netflix shows on your account as if you were in that country, which is also great if you want Netflix in a different language or something. piavpn.com/otherside. If you like that clip, there's more where that came from in our full show, The Other Side. You can watch it right here, the latest episode. And please subscribe to our channel by pressing the subscribe button right here or down here. And remember to click that notification bell too. It all helps. Join us and become part of The Other Side.